Today we are going to be talking about addition properties in math. This is lesson 2.7. If you are looking for a reference point in your math textbooks, you would look on pages 84 and 85. Lots of good information there. So our main idea is we are going to talk today about the associative property and the commutative property to be able to add whole numbers and decimals mentally. First off, we have the commutative property. That says the order in which numbers are added does not change the sum. 7 plus 11 is the same as 11 plus 7. Both answers you will get 18. Over here, if you're talking about decimals, same thing. It doesn't matter what order you add them in. 2 and 3/10 plus 9 and 5/10 will give you the same sum as 9 and 5/10 plus 2 and 3/10. Both ways, you're going to get 11 and 8/10. Our second property is the associative property, all right? And I try to tell the kids, when you see those parentheses, you know that you're talking about the associative property. So kind of put that in your mind. Parentheses means associative property. And that says the way in which numbers are grouped does not change the sum. So in this example here, we could add 9 plus 6 first, that's 15, and then add the 4, that's 19. Or we can group it a little differently and first add 6 plus 4, which is 10, and then add the 9 in, and that way we still get 19. So the order in which you group numbers, all right, the way in which you group them does not change your answer. On this side, same thing with the decimals. We could add 1.8 plus, and then group 0.2 plus 5, or we can group 1.8 plus 0.2 and get 2, and then add the whole number of 5 in for an answer of 7. Either way, on either side, whichever way you group them, you're going to get the same answer. And lastly, let's talk about the identity property. All right, the identity property says the sum of any number and 0 is going to equal that number. So 14 plus 0 is 14. In a decimal form, 0 plus 6.75 equals 6.75. A million plus 0 equals a million. All right, and that is the identity property. The sum of any number and 0 equals that number. All right, so automatically this comes up in my mind. I'm automatically thinking associative property because I saw immediately the parentheses. All right, so let's take a look at it. They want us to identify the addition property used to rewrite this problem. On this side of it, they group together the 26 plus 5, and then you add in the 14. On this side, you add the 14 plus 26, and then the 5. All right, either way, you're going to get the same answer. And this is the associative property because of the parentheses. All right, so the grouping of the numbers to be added is changed. Therefore, that is the associative property. All right, now in this one, this says to identify the addition property used to rewrite the problem below. On this side, we have 3 plus 5 plus 9, and it says that equals 5 plus 3 plus 9. Now, all they did here was change the order. We have a 3 on this side, a 3 on this side, a 5 on this side, a 5 on this side, a 9 on this side, and a 9 on this side. But I don't see the parentheses. All right, so that automatically tells me it's not going to be the associative property, all right, and it's not the identity property because we're not adding 0 in, all right. We didn't even talk about the distributive property yet, so that leads me to believe it's going to be the commutative property, which just says the order in which you add numbers does not matter. We can apply this to real-world examples. All right, Aisling counted 21 gray cars, 13 white cars, and 19 red cars. How many cars did she count in all? All right, there's a clue right here. They're asking us to add because of these two words, in all. All right, and so the problem, it says you can easily add 21 and 19. You can change the order and group those two numbers together. All right, so they started off and they took each number, they went 21 plus 13 plus 19, all right, and then they just changed it because they saw that these were Mrs. Yost used the word earlier in this chapter, compatible numbers, meaning they add together easily, all right? And so they put those two by each other and then added the 13 on, all right? That is the commutative property when you change the order. All right, next, they're gonna put these in parentheses, all right? And then once you add those parentheses in, that is the associative property. And then you can easily add 21 plus 19 is 40. Then you add in the 13, and I'm doing this mentally. 40 plus 13 then would equal 53. So in this problem, we use both the commutative property, we just changed the order, that doesn't matter. We added in the parentheses, that's the associative property, and that allowed us to, in this step, be able to add mentally to finish the problem. And that's the purpose of this. We want to be able to add mentally if possible. All right, in this example, it says, Luann saw 12 scary movies, 15 action movies, and 8 comedy. How many did she see in all? Again, the in all is going to show us that she's adding these numbers together. All right, and so we can do, I would start off and say, write them in order, 12 plus 15, and then plus the 8. All right, now I'm noticing that 12 and 8 are compatible numbers. So I'm going to use the commutative property, and I'm going to rearrange these numbers. I'm going to say 12 plus 8 plus 15, that's the commutative property. The order of which you add them does not matter. All right, then in the next step, I'm going to add parentheses around these two. All right, that is the associative property. All right, and now this is going to allow me to mentally add these numbers together. 12 plus 8 is 20, and then our final answer would be 20 plus 15, and 20 plus 15 is 35. All right, so she saw 35 movies in all. We can also use these properties when we're adding decimals. Again, it will allow us to look for compatible numbers, see what adds together easily, and then be able to mentally add those numbers together. All right, so they're asking us to use those properties to find 1.7 plus 0.6 plus 0.3. All right, so they're noticing that 1.7 and 0.3 are compatible numbers. Notice how 7 plus 3 add up to 10. In the last example, the 8 and the 2 added up to 10. So they're going to group those numbers together. When you change the order, all right, when you change the order, they switched these two around. All right, that is called the commutative property, which says it doesn't matter what order you add numbers in. And then they're going to add parentheses around those two. And whenever you see the parentheses, that's the associative property. And then lastly, we know 1.7 plus 0.3 equals 2. And then I can add together 2 plus 6/10, and I would get a final answer of 2 and 6/10. All right, so the whole purpose of these is being able to move the numbers around. We're not changing the value at all. It just allows us to be able to add mentally. All right, so in this example, when I look at 5.1 plus 0.2 plus 0.9, I notice that this number and this number are very compatible with each other. 1 plus 9 equals 10. So I'm going to first of all use the commutative property, and I'm going to switch the order of these. And I'm going to write 5.1 plus 0.9 plus 0.2. All right, and that is the commutative property. All right, now I'm going to add our parentheses in, because I'm going to be adding these together first, and then I'll add the 2/10 in. When I added those parentheses, that's the associative property. Now I can mentally multiply 5 and 1/10 plus 9/10 equals 6, or 6.0. I can add in the 2/10, and I can mentally do that. 6 plus 2/10 equals 6.2, 6 and 2/10. Which looks like the letter A is the correct answer. Partial sums of 10. Use properties of addition to find 24 plus 17 mentally. So they're breaking each of these numbers down. We know 24 is 20 plus 4. We know 17 is 10 plus 7. All right? So now we're simply adding these together because those are compatible, easy to add, 20 plus 10, and then we'll add together the 4 plus the 7, and then we'll try, and that's the commutative property. They changed the order in which they added the numbers, and so that's the commutative property. All right, now they're going to add in the parentheses. Whenever you see the parentheses, that's the associative property. All right, and now we're going to do some mental math. All right, 20 plus 10 is 30, and 4 plus 7 is 11, and then we can add those together mentally. 30 plus 11 is 41. All right, so we are going to do the same thing here to find the sum of 35 plus 26. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to break 35 down. I know 35 is the same as 30 plus 5. All right, and then I know 26 is the same as 20 plus 6. So now I'm going to use the commutative property, move my numbers around a little bit because the commutative property says it doesn't matter the order in which you add numbers. So I'm going to put 30 plus 20 here. I'm going to move that here, and then I'm going to move the 5 over here and do the 5 plus 6. So since I moved the order of those around, that's the commutative property. In my next step, I'm going to do some grouping. I'm going to group the 30 plus the 20 together, and I'm going to group the 5 plus the 6 together. Because I added those parentheses in, that's the associative property. And now I can do my mental math. All right, 30 plus 20 equals 50, and 5 plus 6 equals 11, and the last step I can do 50 plus 11, and I get a final answer of 61. All right, letter D. So, the main thing about today's lesson is using the properties. All right, commutative property says it doesn't matter what order you add numbers in. The associative property says you can group, so whenever you see those parentheses, you can group together compatible numbers to make it easier to add mentally. All right, and then the identity property says any number plus 0 is going to equal that number. Thank you.